But we'll see. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's quite exciting. And recently, I've said a bit about NFTs. I think there's too much hype around it. And it's pretty crazy how much money people are throwing at NFTs. I don't think the value will hold. We can talk a bit about that if you want.
Yeah. It definitely has a bubble feel right now.
Yeah. I mean, paying like one thing with recent thread I wrote on Twitter, I ended up with just putting a NFT of my Twitter avatar out there, and it sold for 5 Ether, and it's just a picture of my avatar. So it's kind of crazy why someone would pay $10,000 for a digital token representing an avatar.
Yeah, I'm curious to ask the buyer that question too, but I'm sure they're a big fan of yours.
Maybe, and the buyer I think is anonymous, so
okay.
It's hard to ask him.
And what do you think are the top 3 inflection points in the industry in the next 2 years?
I think, well, let's say we went through one. I think having like MicroStrategy, Square, and now Tesla, like companies buying into Bitcoin and putting crypto in their treasury is something I never actually thought would happen. It's something I just didn't think about, but it made a lot of sense because why would they hold dollar when dollar is getting inflated away? Holding Bitcoin makes a lot of sense. So a few years ago, holding Bitcoin was risky, and now companies are starting to realize that holding dollar is actually the risky move, and holding Bitcoin is a safe bet, or at least diversifying into Bitcoin. I think that's the first inflection point. I think more and more companies, big companies, will start doing the same thing. The second inflection point, I think, would be an ETF. Recently there's an ETF in Canada. I think that's huge. Having an ETF approved by the SEC in the US would be a huge step where this will allow like anyone to invest in the crypto space. And right now it's still kind of hard to buy Bitcoin, buy Litecoin, to hold it. Having an ETF that does all that for you, and all you have to do is go to your brokerage and say buy something, right? Buy this stock. Makes it a lot easier for institutions, for anyone to get in, right? For funds, for IRA accounts. So I think that'll be the next kind of point, next inflection point. A third one I would say is it would be countries getting into Bitcoin and crypto, right? Countries putting part of their treasuries, just like what companies are doing today, having countries do that. I think my bet is you'll start to see the same thing, like a small country would do it, and then it would snowball, and then before you know it, the United States government might put some money into Bitcoin also.
Those are really good points. And there are many students here in the audience from all over the world dialing in. What's your advice for them for getting into crypto?
My advice is to, there's just a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot to learn. My advice is to spend like your first year learning about everything related to Bitcoin, blockchain, crypto. I know a lot of people like come into this space, and the first thing they say is something's broken, they want to fix it. Right, and a lot of times they're just they don't understand what's going on. And you can't really fix something when you don't really understand it. So my advice is always just read up on everything Bitcoin, watch a lot of YouTube videos on Bitcoin. If you're technical, really do a deep dive into Bitcoin, try to understand the technical side of things, read the code. And obviously, the first step is to read the actual white paper. That's what I did when I first got in. Read it a few times. It's actually, there's a lot of information in the white paper. It's not exactly how Bitcoin works today, but most of it is still the same. And it's actually very insightful. So definitely read the white paper. Don't skip that.
I I know we need a lot more developers to come into the crypto space, but aside from them, what other key talents are we missing in this space?
I think what needs to be built out are like infrastructure pieces. So what's missing, just having more people start companies building stuff on top of Bitcoin. So for example, like Lightning Network is a good thing, like layer 2 solutions on top of Bitcoin. So obviously the developer is very important. I think business people creating companies that build on top of Bitcoin and on top of crypto is very important. Another thing I think that needs improvement is the kind of the crypto media space. There's media reporting around crypto is pretty poor for the most part, in my opinion. So I think that could be revamped.
Is it inaccuracies or they're kind of late to coverage?
Inaccuracies. Yeah, people who don't understand what's going on, write articles about it.
Yeah, for sure. I remember when TechCrunch hired me and they said they didn't have anyone who understood crypto and they wanted someone to actually write from who's kind of experienced in the scene, seen it firsthand. So I definitely agree we need a lot more crypto native writers and journalists to share news and the details of crypto in accurate ways to the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And can you share some lessons learned from navigating crypto initially that students can take away from here?
Lessons learned. So a lot of people ask me about like buying crypto, right? So people get interested in this space. Like most people are actually interested in making money, right? To put it bluntly. So the things that kind of lessons learned about that is a lot of people, most people new to the space get in when the price is high. That's just kind of the nature of things because when the price goes up near the end of a bull market, there's just lots of media about it. Everyone's talking about it. CNBC is talking about it. They're interviewing everyone. So everyone hears about Bitcoin and crypto around that time. And then they get in around the high. And then afterwards, the price would crash because it's so volatile. It would go up, like overshoot the real value, so to speak. And then it would come crashing back down and then consolidate for maybe a few years. So what happens is people get in on the high, and then when it crashes, they can't afford to, they think it's going to go to zero, and then they sell. So they do the exact opposite of what you should be doing, which is buy low and sell high, right? So people buy high and sell low. So the advice is always just be wary that it's volatile, right? The price can crash 80%, depending on what you buy. But as long as the fundamentals haven't changed, be kind of there's a hodl mentality, right? Just hold through the lows, and you should it should be fine at the end. But so I guess the advice is don't invest more than you can afford to lose, and try to understand where you're investing. But don't put all your money into a scam, obviously. But so just do more research and don't invest more than you can afford to lose. That's good advice on investing in crypto.
Yeah, that's definitely good advice right now, given that we're seeing kind of all-time highs with all the coins and the market. And
like just the past few days, right? It dropped from 58,000 to was it 46,000 in Bitcoin, and I'm sure a lot of people bought when it's like 58,000 because it's going up. Everyone thought it was going to be 100,000, and now it's at 46,000. But the fundamentals haven't changed, right? So I think the future is still very bright. We're still in a bull market. It's going to consolidate for a while in 46,000, and it's going to go push for the all-time high, I think, in the future. So don't panic. A lot of times, if you have the funds, it's good to dollar cost average, right? Instead of putting all the money in when it's at 58,000, buy some at 58,000 if it drops, buy some more so you average your your buy-in price, so it's a little bit lower.
Yep. And at this time, I have some questions from the audience that we collected previously, and then I'll also be going through the chats and answering, sharing some of the questions that folks have. So the first question I have, do you think Bitcoin will replace the dollar as a global reserve currency? Will one or more tokens eventually supersede fiat currency?
I think that's the end goal. When I first kind of discovered Bitcoin, I realized that it's like the best form of money that we've ever encountered. We as in like the human species. Gold is good money, but Bitcoin is digital gold. It's even better than gold in the sense that it is digital. You can easily send it, you can easily store it, and you can easily divide it into smaller pieces, which is not true with gold, right? So it's kind of like the best form of money we've seen. So I think the end goal is it will eventually replace U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency, and yeah. So if and when that does happen, it's going to be crazy, right? The market cap of Bitcoin is, well, it's less than $1 trillion now, but it reached $1 trillion. Like gold is $10 trillion. The U.S. dollar is huge, right? To actually get there, the price has to go up quite a bit. I do think that's going to happen. Will it happen in our lifetime? I don't know. I'm pretty bearish with the U.S. dollar. I think eventually it will hyperinflate, but it might not be in our lifetime. But yeah, I think holding Bitcoin and just crypto in general is a safe bet. It's a good hedge against the U.S. dollar.
And another question I had is, where are we in the crypto markets when it comes to mainstream saturation?
I think we're still very early. Yeah, the crazy thing is when I discovered Bitcoin in 2011, I actually thought I was late because Bitcoin hit dollar parity in early 2011, and then by the time I bought my first Bitcoin, it was at $30. So it's already gone up like 30x since early the year. So I thought I was really late. Well, not really there. I thought I was late. So I bought in, and then it crashed back to $2. So that was like a 90% crash, right? So that's kind of scary at that time too. But when it hit $2, I actually bought more instead of selling. Yeah, I think we're still early. Obviously not as early as 2011, but there's still a lot of room for adoption. It's not, Bitcoin hasn't reached a point where it's a useful currency yet, so it's still a very, very speculative store of value. I see that in the future it would, with more stuff built on top of Bitcoin, like Lightning Network, other layer 2, possibly layer 3 solutions, it will become more useful as a currency. And then PayPal's talking about like having Venmo adopting crypto, having merchants adopting crypto. So when that happens, there's going to be a lot more people using crypto to buy stuff, a lot more merchants accepting crypto. And yeah, so we're still kind of early, still a lot of room to grow.
Great. I have some more high-level questions, and maybe we'll dig a little deeper into the Litecoin-specific questions that we have a lot of enthusiasts in the chat room. So I'll hold off those for later. And another question I had is, do you see more regulations coming into the altcoin trading space? What characteristics of altcoins should investors be looking at?
Regulations in altcoin, I think it's the same as regulation in crypto, right? In Bitcoin also. I do think there will be more regulations around fiat on and off ramps, maybe more KYC, just tightening the regulations. I don't see that as a big problem. I think that's just kind of in order for crypto to work with the traditional finance systems, the on and off ramps need to be regulated to prevent money laundering and other malicious activities. I think that's just normal practice and expected. In terms of what to look for in altcoins, I think the key is make sure that the coin is not a solution looking for a problem. A lot of these coins or these projects are basically trying to throw blockchain at a problem, and they don't really know what the solution is, right? They just trying to see what sticks. So make sure there's actually a real problem to be solved, and that the coin or the project is actually solving that problem and not just doing decentralization for the sake of decentralization or blockchain for the sake of blockchain.
Yeah, with market all-time highs, I suspect we might see a few more, suspicious projects under that category. So definitely it's worth noting.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of projects, they have good intentions, but they're just misguided, right? They're just trying to do something that just doesn't make any sense.
What risks do you see new national crypto, central digital bank currencies pose for Bitcoin, Litecoin?
Yeah, I think that's going to happen, right? China's looking into it. Other countries are having central bank digital currency. Makes sense. I don't see it as a threat to Bitcoin and Litecoin, because the reason why Bitcoin and Litecoin are valuable is because of the decentralized nature, right? Where no countries or companies can just create money out of thin air. And having a central bank digital currency, it doesn't have the same properties as that, right? As a decentralized cryptocurrency. So I don't think it's a threat to Bitcoin and Litecoin. I actually think it will help in terms of making it easy to get into crypto, right? Once you have a digital currency, central bank digital currency, once you have that, people can easily convert from that to crypto and crypto exchanges. So I see that as a good thing, and that will actually help the space and not hurt it.
Got it. And our last question before we move into more Litecoin specific questions. Where is the technology bottleneck that you see right now in crypto?
Technology bottleneck. What I'm seeing recently actually is a governance issue, right? So the current technical feature that Bitcoin developers are working on is Taproot, and everyone has agreed that this is the right thing to do to add. The code is written, it's been code reviewed, it's pretty safe to do, it makes sense, it's simple, or relatively simple. But people are arguing about how to activate it. It's just people are can't decide what's the best way to have Bitcoin upgrade. So there's always a risk when you do a soft fork or a hard fork to upgrade and add new features. And just having people argue about what's the best way to add a feature is kind of silly, but we're seeing that because Bitcoin is $1 trillion cryptocurrency, right? So people are afraid of screwing it up. If you do something that is risky and it breaks, it could really hurt a lot of people. People can lose a lot of money, the price can crash, or the coin can split into two accidentally, and that could cause a lot of problems. So that is an issue, right? How to best upgrade Bitcoin or even Litecoin, and that's always there's always trade-offs, right? You can't just move fast and break things with $1 trillion cryptocurrency. That just doesn't work. But you also don't want to be too conservative, right? Where nothing happens, that everyone's just scared of change and then you just can't do anything. So there's kind of a fine line to walk in. It's kind of hard to do in a decentralized manner. And that, on the flip side, there's Litecoin, right? So Litecoin is different from Bitcoin, where the creator is still around. Like I'm still around, so people would respect what I say. And if I kind of see Litecoin leading towards one direction, most people would kind of follow my what I think is the right path for Litecoin. Obviously, some won't. There's going to be some disagreement, but there's actually a central figure that can kind of steer the ship in a certain direction. And there's good and bad with that, right? With the bad part is it's a kind of a benevolent dictator kind of style, where if I do something crazy, right, then I can steer the ship into the wrong place, right? I can crash it. So as long as I stay benevolent, it's okay, and it's more efficient, right? So Litecoin can, for example, like SegWit. Litecoin was able to activate SegWit before Bitcoin was, and because of that, right? But the bad part is that it's not decentralized, right? So we eventually want to have a system that is decentralized, not relying on one person, because in the end, that one person can be corrupt, can be coerced by a nation state. So that's always a concern. So I think there are trade-offs, and we're kind of seeing how that plays out right now.
All right, so we'll go to the Litecoin specific questions from some of the audience. One question from Joe: is Charlie under a non-disclosure agreement to not discuss the huge LTC growth and adoption? So I guess another way to phrase that question is, what can you disclose about Litecoin growth and adoption?
I'm not under an NDA to not discuss Litecoin. I'm kind of just focused on working on Litecoin. So, and it's also hard to kind of figure out how much Litecoin is growing. It's kind of, there's no easy way to, you can look at like network information, right? Number of addresses, number of transactions, hash rate, all that is growing. But you can't really figure out actually how many users of Litecoin, right? How many people are actually using Litecoin. It's hard to figure that out from, you can kind of estimate, right? So, yeah, when I have like, sometimes I do a deep dive on Twitter in terms of like Litecoin growth. I actually haven't done that recently. Maybe I should do another one. Just looking at how much Litecoin has grown in terms of like network adoption and other stuff. But yeah, good suggestion. I'll take a look at that.
Another question we had from Eric on Grayscale. The premium to the public traded Litecoin Grayscale ticker is at least 10 times the price of the underlying Litecoin. Does Charlie know why this premium is so high relative to Grayscale other products?
I don't know why. I can only guess. So like other products, like the Ethereum Trust or Bitcoin Trust, the premium is like a few percent to up to 10%. Even Bitcoin Cash is only like 10%, maybe 20%. The Litecoin is like 1,000%, 10x the native asset value, which is pretty crazy. It just means, from what I can tell, it just means there's a lot of demand of Litecoin from institutional players. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of surprising that Litecoin would have such high demand, but it's good news, right? It's a good sign that there's demand on the Grayscale LTC end product from institutional investors.
And this question is from David. When will the Wimble privacy features be added to Litecoin, and what exactly is its function?
Yeah, so the project name is MWeb, stands for Wimble Extension Block. So we're working on a privacy and fungibility feature for Litecoin. It's one of the things that I think is missing from Bitcoin and Litecoin, which is fungibility, the ability to kind of where one Litecoin is indistinguishable from any other Litecoin. This is not the case today because with outputs, with everything in the clear, when you send someone Litecoins, they can see like kind of the history of your transactions and see how many, can try to figure out how many Litecoins you own, stuff like that. So financial privacy, I think, is very, very important. So what Nimblewimble does is it hides the amounts. So if I send you some Litecoins on the Nimblewimble extension block, only you and I will know how many coins I sent you. The rest of the world will still be able to cryptographically prove that I didn't create coins out of thin air, that I sent you some coins, but they won't actually know how many coins I sent you. And I think that's financial privacy is very important. So that's one of the features we're working on. We are going to push it into the code base in the neit's few months. So we're still working on the code, still doing like a test net, trying to make sure everything works properly. And then once it's pushed out into code, it would take, and then we will set like an activation period. So it might be like a minor activated soft fork with possibly a UAS at the end. So we're still trying to figure out the best deployment strategy, but it could take a few weeks or a few months for miners to activate it. So miners have to update their code and make sure they're ready for this new feature. But once the feature is live, you can move coins from the main chain to the extension block. And once you're in the extension block, every transaction you do will be using the Nimblewimble protocol with confidential transactions. And we also want to make sure that it's the user interface is simple, right? We want to make it so that it's kind of like a new address type, right? An MWeb address type will be similar to like the SegWit address, right? If someone gives you a SegWit address, if your wallet is upgraded, you can send to the SegWit address, and the coins would just be sent properly. And you wouldn't know what's going on in the background. And the same thing for MWeb. We want to make it so that if the recipient, let's say a merchant, is accepting as a receiving address that is an MWeb address, your client would just send your Litecoins to the MWeb address. If your coins are in the main chain, then it will automatically peg in to the extension block. I'm getting a little bit technical, so some people may understand what I'm talking about. So try to make the user interface as simple as possible so that people don't have to know where their coins are if it's on the main chain or the extension block. And we're spending time doing that just to try to make things easy.
Great. And speaking of mining, we have another question from Clarence. What do you think of Janet Yellen's comments that BTC is not eco-friendly and not efficient means of transfer?
I think there's a lot of FUD about kind of the cost of mining. It is true that it's energy intensive, but lots of things are energy intensive, right? The people having Christmas lights on uses crazy amounts of energy every year, but there's a benefit for that, right? And there's huge benefit for Bitcoin, Litecoin, and crypto. Right? Having decentralized money is a huge win for society in general. So I think there's definitely a cost, but I think the benefit hugely outweighs the cost. So it's kind of silly to talk about the waste of Bitcoin mining when gold mining, silver mining, printing US dollar bills is a huge waste of resources also.
Another question from David. What will happen to the cryptocurrency market when inflation kicks in?
What inflation? I'm not sure what the question is. Is he talking about like hyperinflation in the US dollar, or?
I think just general inflation.
Well, if the question is what would happen if like the US dollar hyperinflates, right? Then the cryptocurrency prices would just shoot through the roof, right? It's kind of so would like everything else, right? If you're holding gold, the price would shoot through the roof also. So cryptocurrency is a good hedge against hyperinflation of the dollar.
Great. At this point, I think, folks, if you have one last question you need to ask, please post it to the group. and we want to be respectful of Charlie's time. Another question that I got was, how should one think about investing in Bitcoin and altcoins as a portfolio?
Good question. So I've always told people to obviously don't invest money that you can't afford to lose, because the crypto is very volatile, right? I do recommend to my friends to invest 10% of their portfolio in crypto. I think 10% is a good kind of a good baseline where if it does go to zero, you lost 10%, right? You still have 9% left, which it's not a huge hit to your portfolio. But Bitcoin and crypto prices easily 10x, like in a bull run. When that happens, you double your portfolio value. Right? So it's an asymmetric kind of investment where the upside is a lot bigger than the downside, in my opinion. So obviously, if you want to take more risk, you can increase that percentage. But I do recommend investing 10%. And in terms of where to allocate between Bitcoin and altcoins, I've always given this the opinion that Bitcoin is kind of the king of cryptocurrency. It's a safer bet, right? So the chances of Bitcoin going to zero is a lot less than the chances of any other altcoins, Litecoin included, going to zero, right? So yes, some altcoins will grow more during a bull market. We see that all the time, right? Even in 2017, Litecoin grew more than Bitcoin. Ethereum grew more than Bitcoin. But in a bear market, everything falls more than Bitcoin. So I would recommend putting half or up to 90% of your kind of crypto investment into Bitcoin, because that's a safer bet. It's also less stressful. A lot of people investing in altcoins, they're really stressed out, even during bear market, even during bull market, because the price is so volatile. Bitcoin is already volatile enough against the dollar. Altcoins are even more so. And it's just, it's less stressful putting kind of more money into Bitcoin and holding it for a long run.
Yeah, I agree. Last question. Of the cryptocurrencies that exist today, how many do you think have a serious future in terms of mass adoption?
So there's a few. So for certain cryptocurrencies are kind of vying for the space of being money, right? Used as money as the main purpose. So Bitcoin and Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash is kind of in that bucket. I think there will be a handful of coins, maybe 3 or 4, that would be used as money. So obviously, I think Litecoin would be one. Like I've always pushed for Bitcoin and Litecoin. Litecoin being complementary to Bitcoin, silver to Bitcoin's gold. So I think there will be kind of a handful in that space. And then there's like the space of like the Ethereum space, right? There's Ethereum, BNB, Polkadot, Tron, stuff like that, where they're trying to be a decentralized smart contract platform. I think there will be 1 or 2 that's going to kind of be the winner. And Ethereum is a little likely stay ahead of everyone else, just because it has the network effect, has the first mover advantage, and has just really bright people working on it. And then in terms of everything else, I don't really know, right? There's just a lot of other coins that are doing a lot of different other things. I'm not fully convinced that it makes sense to have a cryptocurrency for everything, because in the end, the benefit of cryptocurrency is the decentralization part, the censorship-resistant feature of it, right? And not everything really needs decentralization, and paying, kind of having the inefficiency of decentralization when you don't need it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Charlie, for your time. I think we had a great turnout, and honestly, the chat room has become a mini Litecoin community chat. So I think it really speaks to the strength of the Litecoin community overall. where's the best time and not time? Where's the best place that folks can continue to follow you and Litecoin?
The best place would be, I guess, two places. One is Twitter. Follow at Litecoin, at Satoshi Lite, which is my handle, at LTC Foundation, which is the Litecoin Foundation's handle. The Reddit is also a good place for discussion, r/Litecoin. And I think in the end, I don't want to be kind of like the central figure for Litecoin, right? So Litecoin in the end is a decentralized currency, right? So people shouldn't just kind of just follow me and listen and then decide where not to invest in Litecoin based on what I say. Right? A lot of times I tweet something, people think something I tweet is stupid, and then you said, "That's it, I'm selling all my Litecoins." And from my point of view, I'm like, why would you buy Litecoin because of what I say, or sell Litecoin because of what I say? Right? It should be, you should buy Litecoin because you believe in the network, in the network of Litecoin, not because of something I said. So do your own due diligence and just try to learn about all these cryptocurrencies and what's good about them.
That's really good advice. And thank you so much again, Charlie, and everyone else tuning in. This has been really informative and really interesting conversation. I learned a lot, so I hope everyone else did too.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to other exciting speakers here you guys are going to have.
Yeah, me too. Well, thank you so much, everyone, then.